Hello everyone, this is a guide video for Syphon Filter the Omega strain and how to set it up correctly to play online. I am also going to talk about how to implement the new texture packs, the cheat packs, and how to set it up with the PCSX2 emulator with the right settings for it to look visually at its best. I already have a video about this topic, but I'm going to label it outdated at this point because many important updates have occurred. The most important update is the sockets function has been fixed on the emulator by AirGamer. So AirGamer fixed sockets for all platforms, Windows, Linux, macOS. Amazing work. And before that update, sockets used to not work. Well, you can connect, but you can't join other people. And we had to use a workaround where you have to install something called PCAP. Doesn't come with the emulator. And on Windows, that's fairly easy. On Linux, you have to jump through some hoops. On macOS, it doesn't even work. So macOS users were stuck not being able to play this game because they only have sockets and sockets doesn't join other people. So now everybody can play this game online. And I want to mention that I'm going to timestamp this video. So pick the timestamp with the relevant platform to you, such as Windows, Linux, macOS, PlayStation 2 or 3. But if you choose any of the emulator timestamps, at least watch this section first, the PCSX2 setup, because here I'm going to talk about how to set up the emulator with the correct visual settings for this game. Otherwise, we'll just start the video by going through these bullet points fairly quickly. So the first note is the version. The sockets fix was implemented in this version 2.3.41, but it actually worked with Linux and macOS on 43. You don't need to memorize these numbers. All you need to know is when you go to the download page, don't download the stable version, just download the latest nightly build. That one has the sockets fix, but I wanted to document which version it got implemented on. Next, we have the 2 steps of connecting. You have connecting to the server, that's a very important step, and then joining a game. Sometimes you can connect to the server, but you can't join. Just because you connected doesn't mean you're going to join. That was actually the issue with sockets. You can connect, but you can't join. I'm mentioning this now because this is going to be important for later when we talk about the DNS workaround, which fixes connecting to the server, and this possibly fixes joining games. Not guaranteed, but possible. Next, we have crossplay. Crossplay is possible between PCSX2, PS2, and PlayStation 3. And sockets and PCAP. All these people can play with each other. Crossplay is not possible between regions, meaning when you're on the US version, you can't play with someone on the PAL version or Korean version. Next, we have the games. Obviously, you need the games to play them on the emulator. After that, the texture packs, cheat packs, and game covers, also from Hybrids database. If you go to the database, this is the link. So covers shows you the covers. These are textures, and these are cheats. We're going to talk about these later in the PCSX2 setup section. Next, we have BIOS. Just Google how to get BIOS from your own PS2 or I don't know. This is on you. I'm not going to show it here. It's fairly easy. Then you need the DNS to connect to, which is the PS Rewired DNS. This will be in the description. Then you need people to play with, Syphon Filter fans. You can find those in our Syphon Filter Discord link in the description. And this is Hybrids database. I'm going to put this in the description as well. Okay, now let's highlight the differences between the game versions. Instead of me talking about each difference in detail, I prepared this list. So you can pause the video here and just read through it. So now let's set up PCSX2. We Google the emulator's name, then go to the download page. And like I said, don't get the stable version, get the latest nightly. That one has the sockets fix. Choose your version. I'm on Windows, so I'm going to choose Windows right now. So when you extract the files to a folder, this will be your directory. You can just cut this folder, put it anywhere. That will be the emulator directory. But when you boot it for the first time, it's going to generate another directory in the Documents folder of Windows. So what I like to do, I like to merge these locations together by renaming the main directory into PCSX2 in capital letters and placing that in documents ahead of me booting the emulator for the first time. So now we booted the emulator for the first time. It generated the folders I was talking about, the BIOS folder and the others. And here we get to pick our language. I like to keep automatic updates enabled. Now, if I go to the BIOS folder, I don't have BIOS. So I prepared in advance my own BIOS and my own cheats, which I got from Hybrid's database. Same with the covers. Notice the names of the covers. Each cover, take for example, the Omega strain, the US version. It's called Syphon filter, the Omega strain, NTSCU. Notice the name. Notice the, what do you call it? The case sensitivity, like some letters are capital and small. Copy the exact name of this cover and name the game file, the ISO of the US version of the Omega strain, the exact name as the cover. That way, when you boot the emulator, it will each game will read its own cover automatically. You don't have to manually select it. So in Hybrid's database, there's tabs on the bottom. You click them, you go to covers, textures, and cheats. These are the cheat packs that Yuki created. There's cheats for the demos and cheats for final releases. Get the ones for final releases. These are the textures created by Eli. The first pack is the fixes. You can read its description and what it fixes. The second pack is called the enhancements. This one makes the weapons and the outfits look sharper. And then you have the ultimate pack, the third one. The ultimate pack combines the first two, the fixes and the enhancements in one pack. I like to get the ultimate pack. It's the easiest way to get everything in one place. And then the fourth pack is the PSP weapons. This is a mod. It's a personal preference if you want to use it. I personally just get the ultimate pack. These are my games. Like I said, notice the ISO file names. They match the covers. So we go to the emulator, refresh. Now you get the BIOS. Next. Here you add the game directory. I had my games saved in the folder called PS2 games. Map your controller. There is automatic mapping. Just pick your controller from here. So now let's talk about the GPU panel. If you're on AMD, find your AMD driver interface, but I'm on NVIDIA, and only do this if you're on a laptop. So because laptops have integrated graphics and discrete GPUs, and you want to use the powerful discrete GPU. I also noticed in some laptops, the display and the emulator sometimes have a screen tearing issue. So to eliminate that, choose whatever G-Sync options you have, or you can do V-Sync from the NVIDIA control panel. Or sometimes I like to go to the emulator itself, click on Settings, Emulation, and there is Vertical Sync. Next we have the global settings and the per game settings. What are the global settings? When you click settings right here, anything you apply here is going to apply to all your games in the emulator, as opposed to per game settings. Those are settings you apply to this game only. So I'm going to show you what to do in the global settings first. A couple of things we have to turn on here. Go to graphics. Pick your renderer. Choose Vulkan. It's the best renderer if your GPU supports it. Pick your graphics card. In the OSD section, I like to turn everything off because that's just visual noise. And set OSD message position to none. That's it for the global settings. Now let's go to the per game settings. Right click on the game properties. Now you have the per game settings. Again, go to graphics, go to rendering. If your GPU supports it and your display can display it, pick whatever upscaling you can. I can do 4x. Now for the textures, like I said, download the ultimate pack from Hybrid's database, place it in the textures folder, extract it there, and then enable load textures and asynchronous texture loading. Post-processing, enable FXAA. OSD, we already did that. Now, widescreen mode, this is personal preference. Change aspect ratio 16:9, this also 16:9, and make sure you turn on the widescreen patches, because without them, the screen will just be stretched. You don't want that. We already talked about the texture packs and the cheat packs, which you can find in Hybrids database. You download Yuki's cheat pack for the final releases and extract it in the cheats folder where the emulator directory is located. And then you enable cheats. Now these are the cheats. You can enable 60 FPS mode, but just remember when you do that, you can't do the jump glitch anymore. And those cheats and textures and covers, they can be updated sometimes. So if you want to track their updates, just regularly check Hybrids database or check our Discord. We post about them if any changes get implemented. And then you have the in-game keyboard and mic. So the in-game keyboard is when you are typing in the lobby, in the in-game chat, or like you're typing your character's name, your login password and user. You have to select each letter with the controller. But if you apply this from here, you go to controller, USB port, and pick HID keyboard. This allows you to use your PC keyboard to type inside the game much faster. And from back in the day, there was the headset that you connect to PS2. You can emulate that. So yeah, it is push to talk. However, the audio quality is not that good. We just use Discord for voice chat. So this is just aesthetic, but the keyboard is important. And here you have to pick your input device, whichever microphone you're using, and your output device. Okay, now let's talk about how to set up online for PCSX2 on Windows using Sockets. So go to the emulator, click the per game settings, network in HDD, enable this, change this into Sockets, pick Wi-Fi or Ethernet if you're connected via a cable, and change this into manual. You need a DNS here, so we're going to use the DNS for PS Rewired. And that's it. That's all you need to connect. Now to use PCAP, you need to install in PCAP. So search for it like this and download it and install it from here. After you install it, it's going to appear in the emulator. And it's the same settings as Sockets, but you need an IP address. So to get that, open your command prompt on Windows and type in ipconfig and hit enter. Find the adapter that you're using to connect to the internet, whether it's Wi-Fi adapter or Ethernet. And in that adapter, look for the line that says IPv4 address and copy the number off of that. Then paste it in the emulator. But before you do that, you need to change sockets to PCAP bridged or switched. I would use bridged because switched does not work with Wi-Fi and bridged works with both Ethernet and Wi-Fi. You can use switched with Ethernet at least, if there's load traffic on your internet, like someone is downloading, uploading something, and you can't connect because of that, so switched can help in that case. Otherwise, I would just keep it on bridged. After that, paste your IP address and change the last digit. And just like sockets, you can go back and watch the sockets section, the NetGUI, I showed it in there. You keep everything in it automatic. And that's it. That's how PCAP works. Now let's switch to Linux. I am using Linux Mint Cinnamon, and just like Windows, you Google PCSX2 and don't download the stable version because the sockets fix is in the latest nightly. They have two versions for Linux. There's the AppImage and the Flatpak. I think both of them work for sockets, but PCAP doesn't work on these versions. So if you want PCAP, you have to use the Synaptic Package Manager. So first, open your start menu and type software sources. You can see I already did this, but click add and copy paste the emulator name, PCSX2, this PCSX2 team, PCSX2 daily. Or you can just use this command in the terminal. Then open the Synaptic Package Manager and search for PCSX2 and install it from there. After that, you open the terminal and enter this command to give the emulator the PCAP permissions. If you don't add these permissions, if you just use the Flatpak or the AppImage, the PCAP will show you, when you try to connect online, it will show you this message. Now that we have the emulator, just like Windows, the NetGUI keep that automatic, and everything else is also the same when you do sockets. Just open the settings, go to network, enable sockets, and find your Wi-Fi adapter or Ethernet adapter and just put the DNS in there. That's it for Linux sockets. For PCAP, just like Windows, you need the IP address, so open the terminal and type in ifconfig. I think it's the one after inet. That's where your IP address is. Copy that. Choose PCAP bridged, choose your adapter, and paste the IP and change the last digits. Just like Windows, change the last digits. As for NetGUI, watch the Windows Sockets section. I showed it in there. Just keep everything automatic. That's it for PCAP on Linux. Now for macOS. So before the sockets update, everybody was using PCAP to play, but on Mac, if you choose PCAP, you get this error message, which is the emulator doesn't recognize the adapter at all on PCAP. If anybody knows how to solve this, you can post it in the comments and I will pin your comment. But for now, Mac users who were stuck before not being able to play this game online at all, now they can play it using sockets. So just like Windows and Linux, go to the PCSX2 download page, but this time choose the macOS version, install it, but this time remember to give it permissions in the operating system, just like this. Then open the emulator, go to the network menu, choose your adapter, choose sockets, and put the PS Rewired DNS. And you can go back to the sockets Windows section and watch the NetGUI, how to set it up. Basically, just leave everything on automatic. And that's it for Mac OS. Now for the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3. So the PlayStation 2, the fat model, it needs a separate network adapter, and the slim, it comes with an adapter built in. Both of them you connect to the router using a cable. But on PlayStation 3, you can use a cable or you can connect using Wi-Fi. But just make sure on PlayStation 3 you're using one of these models. I will explain these in a minute, but first let me show you how to connect online. So after you connect it to the router, you boot the game on your PlayStation 2 or 3 and you go to the NetGUI. See, on the emulator, the NetGUI, we keep everything automatic, the IP address and the DNS. But on the PS2 and 3, the only change you do is that you enter the PS Rewired DNS manually into the DNS screen. I'm doing this on the emulator, but it's the same screen you're going to see on your console. So to understand which models of the PS3 work online with the Omega strain, you need to take a look at this list. It's basically explaining the types of emulators that are inside every PS3. So all PlayStation 3s, they emulate PS1 games. That's separate. But for PS2, you have Emulator A, which is full hardware. It has both the CPU and GPU of a PS2 like built inside the console itself. And make sure you're using either the disk of the game or the ISO. Do not use the PS Classics version because that version only works with Emulator C, the software emulator. This one doesn't go online. And Emulator A, the one you want, it's in these specific models. So make sure you check the model number and the game that you're playing, it's a disk or ISO, not PS Classics PKG. And the second type, we have Emulator B, which is half hardware, half software. This also plays disk and ISOs and it goes online. Again, these models have it, and they also have Emulator C, but that one is for the PS Classics. It doesn't work online. Other fat models that are not these numbers, and the slim models and the super slims, those only have Emulator C. So those models cannot go online at all because they can only play the PS Classics version. So if we go here, now you can notice the models that have Emulator A and the models that have Emulator B. Only these models can play this game online for PlayStation 3. Now that we're done with the online setup, let's talk about some common issues. So first we have the Korean version. This version cannot connect online unless you use the DNS bypass cheat. You can find the cheat in Hybrid's database. Second, the agent name, you can change your character save file. Let's say you saved your agent under the name X and it's T4. Now you log online and you make a new account. You name the account Y and you log in with Y. you're going to have Y become T4. Make sure you save, like go to the wardrobe section where you change your character's clothes and just change anything and click save so it saves. Now, after you saved it, you effectively changed your T4 character name, even in offline. Now, if you like shut down the emulator or the console and come back again, your character that was X now becomes Y. It's a hack we use to change our save file name. Next, we have how to switch between login and register. So what I mean is you made it to the login account menu. This here says login account. So we'll call it login account menu. And for some reason, you have your user and password already entered. Let's just enter any password. And I want to log in, but here, if sometimes this happens when you like change the memory card or like put a new memory card with a new installed emulator, for any reason, it says register instead of login, and you can't log in. So what do? You press circle, which says right here says choose region. So you press circle, you go back to the region menu, then you press square, and now the word register will be switched to login, and you can go into the command center. The vice versa of this is I want to register a new account, but it says login. There's no register button. What do? Let's say I want to make this new character, this new username, and all I have to do is go press on login. It will prompt me to register a new account. The agent name, if it can't be registered, that means somebody else already is using that. So just change it up a little bit. And lastly, we have the authentication of DNS. Sometimes it just takes too long, gets hung. Again, use the DNS bypass cheat. Now let's talk about the special cases. So we have this DNS workaround and we have the port forwarding. If you remember all the way up in the intro, we talked about the two steps of connecting. So this step is solved by the DNS workaround, and this step is solved by port forwarding. Just so you know, port forwarding does not always work, but it helped some people. It helps you when you can't join other people's games or they can't join you. As for the DNS workaround, if you suspect your ISP, your internet service provider, is blocking this DNS or any third-party DNSs, or like they have a strict NAT type, maybe this workaround can help you. So how do we do the workaround? Well, go to the emulator, right-click the game, and go to network settings, change the DNS from manual to internal. Now go to the internal tab, click override, no, and add. In the name field, just put anything. And in the URL field, the server creator, PS Rewired server, 1UP, he provided us with these URLs. For the US version of Omega Strain, you have this URL. For the PAL version, there's two regions. There's Europe and Australia. You make two entries for the PAL version. But now we're on the US version, so you have just one URL. As for the address, this is the address. I know it looks very similar to the DNS, but like the last number, instead of 0, it says 51, not 50. This is not a mistake. This is by design. So you just copy this and put it in the address field. And make sure you click enabled. And this workaround does not work unless you use the DNS bypass cheats. How to use that? Like I said before, go to Hybris database. Here's the link. This is going to be in the description. Go to the cheats tab and download the cheats. Put them in the cheats folder. Then come here in the game settings, click cheats. Make sure they're enabled. Make sure you enable DNS bypass for this workaround to work. Next, we have port forwarding. To do that, you have to access your router. I'm not going to show my router because every router is different. So just access your router or like call your ISP so they can access it for you, or they give you credentials to access it, whatever. Just go in, find the tab that says port forwarding, make a new profile. And if it says internal port, external port, all of them should be filled with this number, 10075. Make sure you pick UDP Sometimes it says UDP TCP. Don't do that, pick UDP only. And as to the IP address, what do you put here? Well, if you're on PCAP and you put a special IP address here in the settings, here, put that in the port forwarding step. But if you're on Sockets, you go to your command prompt and you type ipconfig, and whichever IP appears in the IPv4 line, copy that and put it in the port forwarding step. As an extra measure, you can like sometimes try this, make a range, like in addition to the 10075, make a new profile, a new entry, in the port forwarding menu, and make it this time a range from 6000 to 7000. Also UDP, same goes for the IP address. If PCAP, use the one in the emulator. If Sockets, use the one that your PC uses. Or like if you're on PS2, use the one that your PS2 uses. You can figure that out by accessing your router and looking at which device is using which IP. Alright, I hope this video was helpful. I want to give a shout out to these amazing people, AirGamer, who fixed the Sockets function, OneUp for hosting the PS Rewired server and maintaining it, Hybrid Games for hosting everything related to Syphon filter on his database and providing us with very rare items regarding the franchise, Yuki for creating all these powerful cheats and helping me testing Linux, Eli for creating those amazing texture packs and also helping me a ton with testing on Windows, Grinchkov helped us a lot with testing on Windows, and finally the amazing Marcus, who helped us a lot with the macOS testing. There's one more person I forgot to mention in the credits here, so I want to say,
last but not least, I want to thank me.